In our first half hour, we took a closer look at Iowa politics, and now we are heading across the river to Illinois. Last week, House lawmakers passed 133 bills, and we'll get to some of the highlights in a moment. But first, the State Board of Education is asking for nearly $11 billion for the next fiscal year. It's why Ben Zielinski, State House reporter for Capital News Illinois, joins us right now. All right, Ben, next year marks a decade since the state's new formula funding was implemented. How has it been working, and how confident is the State Board of Education that they'll get $11 billion?
Great. It's been a very slow process. State lawmakers by this point wanted to be pretty close to at least 90% of adequate funding for all school districts across the state. We are nowhere near that. It's certainly improved, but the funding formula has been very slow to increase, which was designed by state law, but lawmakers haven't put quite as much into it as I think a lot of advocates had hoped for. But this year, the State Board of Education is looking for that $11 billion funding bill. And I think they're probably more than likely going to get it. That's essentially a flat funding from the current fiscal year that we're in. Really takes into account a lot of structural changes within state government, moving some early childhood education services to a new department. So it's actually a lower budget this year than last year. But outside of that, it's very much a baseline budget, kind of like we're seeing throughout the rest of state government.
Yeah, I mean, as we've been talking for weeks, what feels like months now, it's going to be a very tight fiscal year for Illinois. And they do have some time before the budget has to get passed. So for the moment, let's set that aside and look at some of the bills that the House passed last week. And of course, this does not mean these are law now. They still have to go through the Senate and the governor. But let's start with junk fees. What's going on here?
Yeah, so when you purchase airline tickets, concert tickets, any event tickets, sometimes you see that price, and then there's a whole bunch of fees that get tacked on, and you're like, holy cow, I'm paying $15 more, or $20 more than I expected. This is really aimed at getting a lot of that pricing transparency up front. So those fees are actually built into the price that you're seeing at the beginning of the purchase process. So lawmakers are really just trying to get ahead of, what some folks call junk fees because they appear right at the end of your purchase.
The House also passed a bill that would establish an abortion fund for uninsured and underinsured people. What would this do?
Yeah, this is designed to take advantage of basically an underutilized provision in the Affordable Care Act. And this applies to a lot of different situations beyond instances of rape, incest, the life of a mother. And it is essentially going to collect $1 from people who are paying into health insurance programs and put it towards an abortion fund. This is an initiative of the governor basically designed to make abortion access more affordable for people.
So moving on to payments, speaking of money, a lot of places have gone cashless ever since COVID, but now that could change under a House-passed bill.
Yeah, not everybody has access to a debit or credit card. So what state lawmakers are trying to do is essentially force these retail businesses that have a regular register, a cashier that you check out with, to accept cash in at least one location. So there's not going to be a situation where people are showing up to the store ready to purchase items, but all they have is cash and that store doesn't take it. There are some limitations, such as the stores don't have to accept bills over $20. Purchases over $500 don't need to or can be used with restrictions on cash. But this is kind of one of those consumer-friendly initiatives we've seen the General Assembly try and push forward a lot here in the last couple of weeks.
Ben, when you talk about consumer-friendly initiative, I do have to ask, have you heard anything from retailers across the state, how they feel about that bill?
Yeah, so far they're generally supportive of the concept because a lot of businesses, I guess, want that cash flow. Cash flow is, there's less fees on that. That we pay a lot of credit card fees now sometimes on our purchases. So the businesses have generally been supportive of this concept so long as they, have that cashier that they can employ to take these payments.
All right, well, I want to get to some cute news as well. Could Illinois soon get an official state bee?
Yeah, Illinois lawmakers are looking at designating the big yellow and black fluffy bumblebee as the official state bee. Now, this is an initiative of students from Naperville. It was part of a class assignment for some middle school students who were basically tasked with pushing legislation as part of their educational process. So yes, that we could have a new state bee thanks to some middle school students.
Okay, and I got to ask, is this one bipartisan or are there any arguments against this bee?
There's no arguments against the bee. It's got a lot of buzz in the state house, as one lawmaker put it.
Oh, I was going to say, did you practice that line? All right, before I let you go, Ben, do we have an update? We'll go from bees to bears on where the Bears stand with plans for their new stadium.
Yeah, there's no real new update. I know a lot of people might be looking at this Friday as a possible deadline because this is the week that the chambers need to move bills to the other chamber. But deadlines are not exactly mandatory in Springfield. So we could see action this week, but I think this is going to be a longer conversation that's going to take place over the coming weeks. There's still a lot of negotiation happening behind the scenes to get enough support from Democrats to support this bill, which could have some pretty important property tax implications, not just in the Chicago area, but throughout the entire state.
And I know this is a very complicated situation and there's a lot of moving pieces here, but I do want to ask, I mean, does it seem like lawmakers are interested in finding a solution here? Because, we've done all these stories and we hear so much about how Indiana is moving forward, full steam ahead. Is there consequences that could be looming if something isn't done soon in Illinois?
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think this is a priority for lawmakers. I think the big challenge right now is just getting lawmakers to evaluate this as the right thing for their district. They don't want to take a vote that could potentially increase property taxes on their district, on other people's districts. It's an election year, of course, but I think the Bears are willing to give Illinois lawmakers some leeway. We heard from President and CEO of the team, Kevin Warren, a couple weeks ago that this is a decision that's going to come out at the end of the spring, early summer, that coincides with the end of the legislative session. So I think they're giving Illinois lawmakers time to figure this out.
Ben, as always, thank you so much for your time and your expert political coverage. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Shelby.
And for you guys at home, we have our political coverage for both states, including from Capital News Illinois, up on our website. You can find the latest underneath the As Seen on TV tab at the top of the homepage. James?